It's 4 p.m. on Wednesday, September 3rd, here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. Islamic State militants have released another video showing the beheading of an American journalist. The group warns that another hostage will suffer the same fate unless the United States stops launching airstrikes in Iraq. Our Hwang Sung-hee starts us off.
It's titled A Second Message to America, and it's a message that's just as brutal as the first. The video shows another American hostage dressed in an orange jumpsuit on his knees next to a masked man dressed in black and holding a knife. The beheading of U.S. journalist Steven Sotloff was posted online Tuesday by the Islamic State with a warning to President Obama to halt airstrikes in Iraq.
So just as your missiles continue to strike our people, our knife will continue to strike the necks of your people.
The masked man's voice is the same, an apparently British voice, as the world heard on the video of James Foley's murder a fortnight ago. Mr. Sotloff, a 31-year-old freelance journalist from Miami, disappeared while reporting from Syria in August last year, but his family had kept the news secret, fearing harm to him if they went public. Last week, Mr. Sotloff's mother issued a video appeal, pleading with the militants to spare her son.
As a mother, I ask your justice to be merciful and not punish my son for matters he has no control over.
In an effort to help battle Islamic State, President Obama announced Tuesday he will send around 350 additional military personnel to Iraq to protect U.S. diplomatic facilities and workers in Baghdad. The masked man in the latest video also shows who he claims to be a British national, identified on screen as David Haynes, and makes it clear he is also now at risk. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And on to 3 American detainees held in North Korea. The U.S. government says it is doing all it can to secure the release of the 3. Speaking to CNN on Tuesday, State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki said the U.S. was looking into many options to help them, such as dispatching a special envoy. She added North Korea refused Washington's earlier proposal to send Robert King. He is the U.S. Special Envoy for North Korean human rights to Pyongyang. The White House also says the safe release of its citizens was at the top of the administration's agenda. The comments come a couple of days after the 3 detainees were granted a 5-minute interview with CNN in which they all pleaded for the U.S. government to do more to help them. And it's been confirmed by reports now a top North Korean diplomat will visit Geneva for talks for the first time in 20 years. The Swiss daily Le Temps reports that Kang Seok-ju, a key figure in North Korea's foreign affairs, will meet with Swiss State Secretary of Foreign Affairs Yves Rossier during his 3-day trip next week. Kang is also regarded as the point man when it comes to North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Now, Switzerland has been the only nation so far to accept talks with Kang during his European tour, which will also take him to Germany, Belgium, and Italy. Switzerland's foreign ministry says it will seek to foster understanding between Geneva and Pyongyang in the talks. And over at the National Assembly here in South Korea, lawmakers have voted on whether to strip a ruling party lawmaker from his immunity from arrest. Our Ji Myung-gil has the results as well as what has prompted this move.
Ruling Saenuri Party lawmakers Hong Kang-ho stands to be the 4th sitting lawmaker arrested during the 19th National Assembly as he was stripped of that immunity. But among the 223 lawmakers who were present on the plenary floor, only 73 voted in favor of passing the arrest motion. The arrest motion for Song was not passed. Song is alleged to have taken some $63,000 in bribes in 2012 from local railway supplier AVT in exchange for business favors. At the time, the 4-term lawmaker was the chairman of the Parliamentary Land and Maritime Committee, which oversees the Korea Rail Network Authority. By law, Korean lawmakers are immune from arrest during parliamentary sessions, but with the motion passed, a judge will ultimately decide on whether to issue an arrest warrant. The move comes as part of an anti-corruption campaign led by the prosecution. The ruling's Henry Party has been consistent over the past few weeks in saying that the party would not protect Song and bring the arrest motion to the plenary floor. Regarding the hundreds of pending bills related to stimulating the economy, they went untouched during Wednesday's plenary session as the rival parties continued their discord over the special Seoul ferry bill. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
And 2 Special Forces soldiers have died from apparent suffocation during a training exercise for how to act if taken prisoner by enemy forces. Military officers said today that the 2 staff surgeons, only identified by their family names Yi and Cho, collapsed late Tuesday while training in a unit of the Special Warfare Command in the central town of Chungpyeong. The exercise has cadets cover their heads with a hood and drop to their knees with hands tied behind their bags. One other cadet was also injured during the exercise and is said to have returned to his barracks. Now, the military, which has come under fire in recent months for a number of scandals, was quick to emphasize that it was an accident and not the result of any inhumane treatments. Back in March, President Park Geun-hye held a rare 7-hour televised meeting to stress the need for regulatory reforms to spur growth. Now, nearly 6 months have passed since then, and the president today followed up on how much progress has been made in that time. For details, we have Presidential Office correspondent Choi Yu-sun on the line. So, Yu-sun, today's meeting had to be rescheduled because she ordered officials to first ensure that the measures proposed in the last meeting were carried through. So, has there been much progress?
Right, Hyung-kyung. The government says it has nearly completed the required changes to 4/5 of the reforms brought up in the previous meeting, and about a dozen others now await parliamentary approval. Some of the changes include allowing small-sized firms, mostly venture firms, and those in the knowledge-based services and cultural contents industries with 5 or less employees to run youth internship programs. This is expected to offer more job opportunities to Korea's young people and also help the small companies hire qualified talent. Another involves simplifying the process for notifying the government when there's a change to the working relationship between an employer and a foreign employee. Also, close to all of the 92 unnecessary regulations the government had listed as hampering business activities of small and mid-sized companies were also addressed. Hyun-kyung?
So I understand that several of government ministries also laid out new measures to streamline red tape there. So what were some of the noticeable plans? Can you tell us a bit more?
The Land Ministry says it will lift restrictions on the construction of facilities surrounding major city infrastructure, such as terminals and public libraries, to make better use of land and to spur investment. Increasing cultural, leisure, and welfare facilities like movie theaters, hospitals, and daycare centers, for example, are expected to stimulate the local economy. The ministry will also remove restrictions on land set aside for public infrastructure for more than 10 years to be used for other purposes, such as residential and commercial buildings. Some $28 billion of new investments over the next 5 years are expected in the Land Ministry's package of measures announced today. The Agriculture Ministry says it will get rid of restrictions to increase subsidies for agricultural cooperatives and to allow more livestock grazing. It will offer more financial support for city residents looking at farming and eliminate regulations related to the production of agricultural goods. The ministry expects an increase of $775 million in sales in the sector over the next 3 years. And the meeting is still ongoing, and this has been Choi Yu-sun reporting on President Park's follow-up on the government's deregulation efforts, and I'll be back with an update in our next newscast.
All right, thank you, Yusun. Many thanks there. That was our presidential office correspondent Choi Yusun reporting for us. Now, in other news, Korea is often praised for having advanced IT technologies and infrastructure, but apparently there are some negative elements that have weakened Korea's global competitiveness. Our Song Ji-sun tells us where exactly Korea ranks in the World Economic Forum's rankings.
Korea has taken a step backward in terms of global competitiveness. The World Economic Forum, in its annual report, placed Korea 26th in the world, a spot lower than last year. It's the nation's lowest ranking since 2004. The finance ministry pinned the slide to April's deadly ferry disaster, which has dented domestic spending, and Pyongyang's continued missile launches. While the report touted Korea's macroeconomic environment, its infrastructure, and technological advances as positives, it said the nation's institutions, development of the financial market, and labor market efficiency fell well below the global average. The most problematic factors, the report said, were policy instability, government inefficiencies, and tax and labor regulations. The annual report evaluates 144 global economies based on 12 different categories. The rankings at the top remained rather stable this year. Switzerland was number 1 for the 6th consecutive year, followed by Singapore and the United States. The report notes that the growth prospects in advanced economies are better than they have been in recent years, while emerging economies are forecast to grow more modestly than they have in the past. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
In search of new growth engines, Korean conglomerates invested more on research and development and less on plants and equipment in the first half of this year. Seoul-based research firm CEO Score says R&D investments by the nation's 30 largest companies jumped more than 7% to nearly $16 billion year over year in the January to June period. Facility-related investment, however, fell 0.3% during the same period. Now, Samsung poured the most into R&D, followed by LG and Hyundai Motor. And speaking of Samsung Electronics has been having a rough ride as it struggles to deal with slumping profits and increased competition from cheaper Chinese manufacturers. The company's share price is at a 2-year low and profits are forecast to continue falling. Our Kwon So-ah has this next story.
Shares in Samsung Electronics are on the slide, with the company's stock slumping below the 1.2 million won, or roughly $1,180 mark, for the first time in 2 years on Tuesday. This comes as local brokerage houses have been slashing their estimates for the Korean tech giant's third quarter operating income. While last year's third quarter figure was some $10 billion, the average estimate of 27 local brokerages for the same quarter this year stands at less than $6.9 billion. That's a drop of over 30% in the space of a year. The lower end of the projections made by brokerage firms such as Hyundai Securities were even below $6 billion. Industry observers attribute the worries to the growing competition as other mobile manufacturers are threatening Samsung's overseas sales. In particular, China's Xiaomi has emerged as a serious contender, selling more smartphones in China in the second quarter than Samsung could muster. Samsung's second quarter operating profit was disappointing, coming in at slightly over $7 billion. That's down nearly 25% from a year before. Although the Korean firm's smartphone sales are expected to rise by 7% in quarter 3, analysts say intensifying competition from Chinese manufacturers as well as Apple will force Samsung to put more of its profits into its marketing budget. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Korea's foreign exchange reserves fell for the first time in more than a year last month. The Bank of Korea says the country's foreign reserves came in at nearly $370 billion as of the end of August, falling by almost $500 million from July. Foreign exchange reserves had hit a record high in July last year and had been on a rise since then, before dropping last month on the back of the weakening euro and the British pound against the greenback.
bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on Arirang.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe carried out a cabinet reshuffle on this Wednesday. That's a first since returning to office in December 2012. Now, in an apparent bid to strengthen party unity and improve ties with China, Abe tapped two veteran lawmakers with close ties to Beijing to key party posts. While retaining his core ministers, Abe appointed 5 women to leadership positions, the largest ever number of female cabinet members. Yuko Obuchi, the daughter of a former prime minister, was named the new trade minister, and former gender equality minister Sanae Takaichi will take over as communications minister. The reshuffle comes with Prime Minister Abe's approval ratings dipping to around 50% and follows his challenge to corporations to raise their proportion of women managers to 30%. Russian President Vladimir Putin's private conversation with a European official is making headlines. He allegedly said in just 2 weeks' time, Russian troops could gain control of Kiev and do it easily, for that matter. Shin Se-min has the details.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says his forces could take control of Ukraine's capital city in just 2 weeks if given the order. This, according to the outgoing president of the European Commission, Jose Manuel Barroso, who says Putin made the statement to him in a private phone conversation. The Kremlin has not denied that Putin made the remark, but said it was taken out of context. They've threatened to release an audio recording and transcript of the phone conversation to clarify what Putin said and slammed Barroso for making it public in the first place. Barroso claims Putin told him that Kiev would be an easy conquest for his forces. World leaders are starting to arrive in Wales for a NATO summit on Thursday, where the crisis in Ukraine will dominate talks. NATO has proposed setting up a rapid response force to deter threats to Eastern European member states and will decide whether to deploy to Baltic states who remain worried about Russian aggression. U.S. President Barack Obama arrived in one of those states, Estonia, on Wednesday to ally concerns before heading to the NATO summit in Wales. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And on to the Ebola outbreak. 8 organizations fighting to contain the Ebola epidemic have appealed for urgent international assistance before it's too late. They say if not stopped, Ebola could very well threaten peace and security beyond the borders of Africa. Our Son Jung-in reports.
8 organizations battling to contain the worst ever outbreak of Ebola have issued separate but very similar demands. They say international intervention is needed to stem the spread of the deadly virus, calling it a global problem, not just something confined to West Africa. Doctors Without Borders, the group spearheading medical efforts in affected countries, says the fight is being lost, with treatment centers being reduced to places where people go to die alone.
6 months into the worst Ebola epidemic in history, the world is losing the battle to contain it. Leaders are failing to come to grip with this transnational threat.
In a separate speech in the U.S., the head of the National Public Health Agency warned the epidemic is spiraling out of control, with infection numbers rising fast.
There is a window of opportunity to tamp this down, but that window is closing. We need action now to scale up the response.
Frieden went on to say the answer to this outbreak comes down to 3 things: resources, technical experts in healthcare and management, and a global, coordinated, and unified approach. The World Health Organization, criticized for not acting sooner to bring the outbreak under control, reports that more than 3,000 people have been infected in West Africa, but this could rise to 20,000 and spread to more countries. Meanwhile, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization has issued a food security alert for Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, which are the countries most affected by the outbreak. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Apple has confirmed that a number of celebrity accounts were targeted and compromised, but denies that it was the result of a security breach on iCloud or the application called Find My iPhone. Actress Jennifer Lawrence and model Kate Upton were among the dozens of female celebrities whose private nude photos were hacked and uploaded onto a website, triggering security concerns. Apple said following a 40-hour probe, its engineers believe the hacker likely had used usernames, passwords, and security questions to gain access to the accounts. And on to some health news. Local researchers here in Korea say they found a couple of key substances that facilitate the spread of cancer cells in the body. Our Kim Min-ji has this report.
About 17,000 people are diagnosed with lung cancer in Korea every year. 80% of them are fatal cases. Cancer cells travel through blood vessels and spread to other organs of the body, making it difficult to treat, especially among lung cancer patients.
Even if the patient receives an operation, there are cases where they fail to recover because of the spread. The patient needs to receive treatment that does not allow the cancer to spread.
Korean researchers for the first time have found two key substances that are involved in the spread of cancer to other organs: a particular protein that controls cell growth and an enzyme that produces active oxygen. The researchers say these proteins and enzymes cause changes in cancer cells, making them multiply in number and causing them to spread.
We found that changes that occur in complex 1 or P21 has an effect on the spread of cancer in patients. We hope to carry out strategic treatment that will be able to control the spread.
On average, 66% of all cancer patients are able to survive 5 more years. However, if the cancer spreads, the figure drops to 18%. But effective control of the protein and enzyme identified by the researchers is expected to raise the survival rate of cancer patients significantly. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, on a lighter note, a theater director with 60 years of experience is showing that he's more than just a great director. Mr. Im Young-woong has established a theater and helped nurture the next generation of actors, and now he's staging a special production in commemoration of an important milestone. Our Im Yoon-hee has this story.
Charlotte hasn't seen her daughter in over 7 years. And when they meet again, the tension from their troubled relationship has yet to be cleared up. An accomplished pianist, Charlotte never saw eye to eye with her daughter. But the two decide to try to make amends, learning new things about each other in the process. Korean director Im Young-woong's reinterpretation of Ingmar Bergman's drama film of the same name takes the stage to commemorate Im's 60-year anniversary since his debut.
I'm very fortunate to be able to have done plays, which is something I love, for the past 60 years.
We worked together for the founding of the Sanullim Theater Company, and he guided me through my first play, so we're very connected.
The Sanullim Theater Company debuted with the production of the Nobel-winning play Waiting for Godot, led by director Im in 1969, along with the cast members. And since then, they've expanded, even building their very own theater.
Samuel Beckett's play, Waiting for Godot, perfectly captures the idea of the odd modern times and the people who live within it.
Since the beginning, the Sanullim Theater Company has been a special contributor to the world of theater, producing legends such as actress Son Suk, who has now been acting for 52 years, all made possible by the genuine passion of director Im.
He's someone who is always there for you in any life crisis, to teach you and even carry you.
Director Im has been a profound influence on many in the field, as not only a director, but also a teacher, a guide, and even a friend.
In life comes wisdom and experience. We want to show this through the stage and to inspire people to live with character. I hope this play can guide people with that.
Im Yoon-hee, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. A heavy rain advisory is in effect, and we're seeing heavy rain in the Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-do provinces. And as you can see, the cloud cover hasn't cleared out of the upper regions, so make sure to have your umbrellas handy. Now we're looking at up to 10 millimeters of precipitation in the central region through tonight, while 20 to 60 is expected on the edges of Gangwon-do province and Gyeongsang-namdo province, and the remaining regions could see anywhere between 5 to 30. Now, the steady rain nationwide has brought down the temperatures, and they're expected to drop even more into the coming hours. So do keep that in mind if you're heading out this evening. Now, going over to our temperature readings. Seoul will top out at 23 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan hits the mid-20s at 26 and 27 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island is the warmest of all, reaching up to 30 degrees, while Dokdo hits 23 and Mangkeungang just makes it up in the 20s. Now that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you, Hyun-kyung.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for that. And that's a wrap for now. Our next newscast is at 6 p.m. Korea time. I'll see you then.